Welcome on in to our Week 10 Big 12 football recap and reaction show on HeartlandCollegeSports.com. I'm Pete Mundo. It is great to be here with you as Saturday was a great week of Big 12 football. You had 5 games, a full slate of action, and we are now we've entered now the final month of the regular season. I cannot believe it's here. We're going to talk about every game. Appreciate you joining us on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on the podcast. Love you guys and really appreciate all you've done to help this show grow each and every day. And as a reminder on the podcast, rate, review, subscribe. You'll get that free Heartland College Sports Koozie when you send me a screenshot of that rating and review to Pete Mundo, M-U-N-D-O, at HeartlandCollegeSports.com. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about these games in order for the Big 12 on Saturday and Week 10. Let's start off with TCU and Texas Tech. So this game, Texas Tech, I got to give them credit. They were hanging in there for a while. And then at 20-17, TCU leading early in the fourth quarter, Joey McGuire decides he's going to go for it on like 4th and 2 from his own 36-yard line. Now, I didn't agree with the move at the time. I thought, and I know that this is what Texas Tech does. A lot of you guys are going to sit there and you're going to say, well, Texas Tech's been going for it on 4th down in their own end zone. Not own end zone, but on their own end of the field all season long. That is true. That is absolutely true. But while the analytics may suggest that's the play, sometimes common sense should win out and a feel for the game should win out. And Texas Tech's defense had been confusing Max Duggan all afternoon. He was not playing good football, and you got to give credit to what that TCU defense was doing. Duggan didn't have a star receiver, Quentin Johnston, and things were not going well for TCU offensively. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, if Texas Tech kicks the ball here, they're going to pin it, hopefully for them, deep into the TCU end of the field, and they are one big mistake away from Max Duggan to a turnover, pick six, fumble, whatever. But they didn't do that. They went for it on 4th down. Donovan Smith couldn't get the ball up the middle. And then TCU scores like 3 plays later. TCU ends up going up 27-17. And then next drive, Texas Tech approaching midfield. They go for it again on a 4th and 4. They don't get it. TCU goes and scores a touchdown. And that's game, set, match. Like, I understand what the analytics show. I understand why Texas Tech plays the way they do. I've come to accept it. I didn't really get it early in the season, but I understand it now. But sometimes the feel for the game should exceed whatever the analytics say. And that's an important part of being the head coach. I'm not saying you don't use the analytics, but you balance the analytics with what the feel is in the game. And I thought the coaching staff for Texas Tech made a major mistake there at that point in the game. Now, the other side of this is, TCU was starting to build momentum. I mean, not really. It was a 3-point game with like 12 minutes left. That's an enormous amount of time in a college football game. 12 minutes to go. You're down 20-17. Your defense has done a great job keeping Max Duggan in check all afternoon. He was not comfortable most of the day, and that's where you go for it on a 4th and 2? I just didn't like that. I would have rather punted it, see if your defense can make a play, and if not, you're still down, 3 points. Even if they come down and kick a field goal, you're down 1 score. I did not get it, and I feel like it signals an over-reliance on the analytics. Now, you got to hand it to Texas Tech. They're doing all this without an offensive line. I mean, you got to give them credit. They worked in 3 quarterbacks again yesterday. They're playing with an undefeated top 10 team in the country on the road. Like, I'm a big Joey McGuire guy. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, please, because Tech fans always Tech fans seem to think I've got it out against them, and I don't. I'm a Joey McGuire guy. I want to see him do well. I think he will do well. But that move on Saturday against TCU did not make any sense. And TCU should absolutely be in the top 4 on Saturday or on Tuesday. No doubt in my mind about that. Next up, we've got Baylor, Oklahoma. Baylor wins the game 38-35 on Saturday. So Baylor has now won 3 Big 12 games in a row. Oklahoma's 2-game winning streak is over. They're now 2-4 in conference play. So Baylor, to me, as I'm watching this game, and this is why I picked Baylor plus 3.5 as my lock of the week. Baylor was just the better team on both sides of the ball. They just were. I mean, they demolished OU on the ground, and this was the biggest reason I thought Oklahoma would win this game. Now, Oklahoma did a great job running the ball as well, but Baylor did a better job. Baylor demolished Oklahoma, 281 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. Squirrel Williams, 192 on the ground, 25 carries, 192 rushing yards, and a couple of scores. Richard Reese, who had been carrying this team on the ground as a freshman the last few weeks, only had 4 carries. I mean, just ride the hot hand. That was smart for Dave Aranda. Ride the hot hand. And that's exactly what they did in this game. 81 rushing yards. Oklahoma's defense, my goodness, that rushing defense is just terrible. It's been terrible all season long. OU came in giving up 190 rushing yards per game, which was the most in the Big 12 by 30 yards per game. That's how bad the run defense has been for OU. And now it's, I got to look at the averages, but it's probably right around 200 rushing yards per game they're giving up now throughout the season. I mean, it's been that bad. It really has been. And, they picked off Dylan Gabriel 3 times on the other side of the ball for Baylor. And you know what? I mean, you look at that and you say to yourself, you win the turnover battle on the road. You outgain your opponent on the ground. You own the time of possession. You're going to win the game 9 times out of 10. That's what's going to happen. And it's got to be weird for OU fans, I understand, to be this late in the season, not bowl eligible, 2-4 in conference play. Like, we knew there was rebuilding to be done, but I do think it's also fair to say, yes, there's a rebuild, but Oklahoma still has, top to bottom, one of the most talented rosters in this league. So I can't just say, well, OU's rebuilding. It is still one of the most talented rosters in this league. Let's be very clear. Let's be very, very clear about that. But it's not working out for them. It's not. I mean, they beat a couple of bad teams the last 2 weeks in Iowa State and Kansas, their last 2 games. Not bad teams. Kansas is 500. But at that point, Kansas was a worn-down team. They were on a backup quarterback. They were off, a first month of the season that was an emotional high. So they had to come back down to earth a little bit. So they got Kansas at the right time. Football team right now. And I get Brent Venables has to get his guys in there. I understand all that, but there's a lot too that's just not going well for him right now. It's just not. And I would have expected Venables to adjust to this point in the season, and it simply hasn't happened. It hasn't. Next up, as we talk about Week 10 in the Big 12 Conference, I'm Pete Mundo on HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Where do we go next? Okay. Iowa State, West Virginia. Iowa State picks up a 31-14 win. They got their first Big 12 victory of the season. Both teams are now 1-5 in conference play. And this was one of those games where I need to put in for hazard pay on the job. Now, I don't know how I do that since I own the company, but I'm going to figure it out. because this game was a nightmare to watch. Now, at the time, there were 3 Big 12 games going on while this game was being played. You had Baylor, Oklahoma taking place. You had West Virginia, Iowa State going on. And then, of course, you had the Oklahoma State-Kansas game happening. So I'm trying to monitor all 3, and I admit this is one of those games where I'm like, thank goodness there are 3 games happening because this one makes me want to gouge out my eyeballs. It's just ugly all around. A terrifying game in so many ways. But Iowa State, to its credit, actually scored some points. Xavier Hutchinson is the star offensively of this team. 10 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. He broke his own single-season record for receptions. Hunter Dekkers had a solid game. Not a great game, but a solid game. You hope this can be a confidence boost for him. And then, finally, Iowa State got something going on the ground. Now, it's against West Virginia, and West Virginia is not a good defense and just not a very good team. But you know what? You take the small wins. If you're Iowa State and you rush for 172 yards and 2 scores, you say, you know what? I'm not apologizing for that, and nor should you. Nor should you. Defensively, Iowa State didn't get to the quarterback like maybe I thought they could or would in this game and have the opportunity to do that. It didn't really happen. The Iowa State offensive line still has issues. Dante Stills felt like he was in the backfield every other play on Saturday for West Virginia. But if you're Iowa State, you just say, thank goodness we got a win. We're moving on. We're 1-5. You still got a chance at a bowl game, and you're on the next week. I mean, that's how you got to look at this thing if you're an Iowa State fan, because it's West Virginia. You're not going to take much out of this. Now for the Mountaineers. I said on Friday that if Neil Brown doesn't cover the spread, which was 7 points, against a bad Iowa State offense, West Virginia should leave him on the tarmac a la Lane Kiffin USC. Now, I didn't really mean that because it's a douche move, but in all seriousness, when does this end? Like, when does all this come to an end? It's not working for Neil Brown and West Virginia. It hasn't worked for Neil Brown and West Virginia. It is not going to happen for Neil Brown at West Virginia. When do we put this to bed for everybody and just say, you know, Neil Brown seems like a great guy. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He seems like a really good man, a good father. I mean, he just comes across that way. But Neil Brown, in his 4th season now, is 20-24 overall and 12-20 in Big 12 play in year 4. And don't tell me you can't win in year 1. Look at Sonny Dykes at TCU. Never mind year 4. So you have trusted the climb if you're a West Virginia fan. I admire that. The West Virginia fan base, to its credit, I believe overall, has stood behind Neil Brown longer than most fans. Disciplined. And when you're a coach and you've got the team that is the most penalized team in the Big 12 with West Virginia with 57 penalties on the season, and you're a bad team. It's not like you got all these stars and you got a ton of talent and you're high flying and you're all over the field, but sometimes guys get dinged for a penalty here or there. It's a bad team that's also sloppy and undisciplined. And they go on the road, and they've been embarrassed on the road this year in the Big 12. They lost to Texas by 18. That game was 28-0 in the blink of an eye. They got blown out in Lubbock 48-10. And they lost yesterday to Iowa State 31-14, an Iowa State team that couldn't put together a couple of touchdown drives to save its life all season long. They couldn't rush for 100 yards in a game if there were 10 defenders on the field. Iowa State puts up, 170 some odd yards on the ground against your defense. And offensively, I really thought that Graham Harrell would bring a little bit of intrigue to this offense. JT Daniels, Graham Harrell, I thought that was going to be a nice combination. It hasn't worked. It hasn't panned out that way. Level of college football and every conference it's been a part of in college football. They've been in the mix. So I wish Neil Brown well. He seems like a great guy, but this is not working. And it is time for everybody to move on. It really is. I'm Pete Mundo on HeartlandCollegeSports.com covering the Big 12. It's great to be with you as we continue with our Week 9 reaction show. Let's dive into the next game. Kansas beating Oklahoma State 37-16. So, got to give the Jayhawks credit. They lose 3 in a row. They hit the bye week. They regroup. And now you've got a situation where Kansas is bowl eligible. How about that? Bowl eligible for the first time since 2008. You know, in 2009, KU started off 5-0 and then lost 7 straight to end the season. That's not happening this time around. There were some concerns that could happen, but they dominated Oklahoma State. Jason Bean, got to give him credit. The backup quarterback to Jalen Daniels has done very well, has been really in a tough spot, played impressive football. They didn't lose 3 straight games because of Jason Bean's performance. But on Saturday, 18-23, 203 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He rushed for 93 yards, including a 73-yard touchdown scamper. He was doing it all. And then Devin Neal. What a monster game for Devin Neal. 334 yards between rushing and receiving, 224 on the ground, 110 through the air. Absolute stud performance for Devin Neal. You got to love the fact that Lance Leipold has come in here. He's identified the talent. He has put these guys to work. And, Devin Neal's a sophomore, man. I mean, look at this guy. This guy's a sophomore. What a season he's having. Knowing he's going to be back, he's already one of the more explosive players in the Big 12. That's only going to continue for this Kansas program. Defensively, they looked vastly improved. They only allowed 3.2 yards per carry on the ground to Oklahoma State, and Kansas had been giving up about $160 on the ground. They were in the backfield, couple of sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hurries. Now, the Oklahoma State offensive line, and I'll get to the Cowboys situation here in a second, but I have got to give all the credit to Lance Leipold. They regrouped. They looked refreshed coming out of the bye week, and I thought that bye week was so needed for Kansas for so many reasons. This team had been on an emotional roller coaster. 5-0 start, ranked, field stormings, college game day, the whole thing. It was crazy the first month plus of the season. Then Daniels goes down against TCU. They have to regroup. They lose a couple of games. They're worn out physically. They're worn out emotionally. The bye was at a perfect time. And this Kansas team is now bowl eligible for the first time in 14 years. Lance Leipold is the college football coach of the year, no doubt in my mind, after this victory over Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State was playing without Spencer Sanders, but I'm not quite sure it would have mattered. Now, Garrett Rangel, the true freshman, came in through interceptions on his first couple of drives. He actually settled down as the game went on and looked better as the game progressed. That's a tough spot for a true freshman on the road. He finished 27 of 40 for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. The problem for Oklahoma State, and this has been the problem now for a couple of seasons running, they can't get the ball moving on the ground. Like when there's a game when you're on the road, you got a true freshman starting, you want to establish the running game, and Oklahoma State can't do it. And I don't really think it's lack of talent at the running back position. I don't. It's the offensive line. The offensive line is – now Oklahoma State fans are going to know this, but the offensive line has been a mess in Stillwater. It just has not been good. And it was really bad on Saturday. I mean, really, really bad on Saturday. The defense also was nothing to write home about. They didn't really get to the quarterback, Jason Bean, at all in this game. No sacks, only a couple tackles for loss. They did not do a good job on that front. And we knew the defense was leaky. Apparently, Derek Mason reamed out his guys at halftime, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and he did that went so well that Kansas started off the second half with a 15-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. So what's that tell you? I mean, at some point, Derek Mason's got to start catching some heat, too, in year one. I'm not saying he's going anywhere or anything like that. We knew the defense was turning over from last year's incredible defense led by Jim Knowles. So I'm not saying get rid of the guy, but at all. That's not what I'm suggesting right now. Maybe I'll feel differently at the end of the season, but the defense has got to start showing some progress for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. It's not right now. Kansas had 350 yards at halftime. They ended the game with 554 total yards. Kansas rushed for 351 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. I mean, you got to stop somebody. You got to be able to tackle and stop somebody. And this defense couldn't do it against Kansas. It just could not do it. So, all in all, a great win for Kansas. They're bowl eligible, and Oklahoma State is very much a reeling team right now. Next up, as we talk about these Big 12 football games from Week 10. Last but certainly not least, the game of the night. Texas beating Kansas State 34-27. So Texas is now 6-3. Kansas State 6-3. Both teams are 4-2 in Big 12 play. Texas got off to a great start. They were up 31-10 at halftime. Kansas State was coming back in the second half. And they had a chance on the final drive of the game, and then Adrian Martinez fumbled the ball. It was recovered by Texas, and that was essentially the ball game. Now let's just jump right to that final drive. Kansas State fans were blowing up my phone, just so ticked off at Chris Kleiman. Some were upset that Adrian Martinez got the start. I watched the game, obviously. And Adrian Martinez made some plays. You want to call it street ball, that's fine. But he made some plays, throwing the ball and with his legs, that kept them in this game. That played a very important role in the comeback. Now, I get the fumble, and I'm going to get to the coaching staff on that front in a second. But to me, Adrian Martinez is, frankly, the reason that Kansas State had a chance on that final drive, because of how he played in that second half. Now, the first half was just a disaster. But it was a disaster because of the defense. It was a disaster because Steve Sarkisian basically said, beat Bijan Robinson, and Kansas State's like, we can't. Kansas State, on its first two drives, scored 10 points. The problem is Texas scored 21 points on their first three drives. So, Kansas State got off to a fine start offensively. Right? You have to admit that. But when you can't stop anybody and you can't stop Bijan Robinson on the ground, and I understand, Oklahoma State doesn't have a Bijan Robinson, but you shut out Oklahoma State last week, and then Texas puts up 21 points on their first three drives, and none of those drives were longer than 3:21. I mean, they were quick, bang, bang, bang drives. Literally, 3 touchdowns, all 3 drives under 3.5 minutes. That's what I'm looking at for why Kansas State lost this game. And the defense locked down in the second half, to their credit, forced a fumble, punt, force a field goal, punt. They did a good job once they started to get settled down. But you're playing down 31-10. I mean, no one's built, very few teams are built to come back from 31-10. Never mind Kansas State. I said before the game that Kansas State can only or will win this game if they dominate time of possession, if they control the ball, if they do all, and they did win time of possession, but I didn't expect Texas to put together 3 touchdown drives out of the gate of 3.5 minutes each. So I didn't see that part coming. So even though they won time of possession, it's It's mistelling the story based on how the story actually went on Saturday. But, K-State's just not built to come out of that kind of a hole. So they played some street ball, and it didn't work out for them ultimately on that final drive. Now, as for that final drive for Kansas State, I'm watching it. They're down 34-27. They're moving the ball down the field. And after they convert that fourth down, I'm going, timeout, timeout. You got two. There's 30 seconds left. Use the timeout, Kleiman. You got two left. That means you still have one in your back pocket if you need it. Didn't use it. At that point, the emotion was as such. Guys' legs were tired. It was the ninth play of the drive you were about to do. Use the timeout. Give your guys a blow. Let them get some water on the sidelines. Let them regroup. Now, Kleiman said he was going to use one after the next play. I know you want to keep Texas on its heels a little bit, but your guys are burnt. They've made a huge second-half comeback. They've been on the field for a ton in that second half. I mean, right before that final drive of the game, they had a 13-play drive that took 6 minutes off the clock. They were tired. Then they were playing. It was the ninth play of the drive on the final drive of the game. They're burnt. You got to know when to use the timeout there. You have to use it if you're Chris Kleiman, and he didn't use it on that play. And that was a mistake. That wasn't Monday morning quarterbacking. I was doing this thing. I was doing it from the couch. I know many of you were as well. So that's where I'm watching this, and I'm saying Kleiman screwed up. But I don't think he screwed up because he started Adrian Martinez over Will Howard. I know it's been a popular conversation and talking point for K-State fans. I wouldn't agree with that. And I was a huge, and we're all watching Will Howard the last couple of weeks and saying that guy gets the ball vertically downfield better than Adrian Martinez. I agree. But Martinez was not bad on that front for the most part on Saturday. And his wheels certainly kept him in this game and helped him down the stretch to get back into the game. But Texas now improves to 4-2 in Big 12 play, and College game days going to Austin next weekend for Texas and TCU. Can you believe it? It's the third Big 12 game they've been a part of. Texas, Alabama, half a Big 12 game. Kansas, TCU, and now Texas, TCU. So TCU and Texas playing each other. This is now the second College game day experience for both of those teams this year. Go figure. Pretty fun stuff. I'm Pete Mundo. Great to be with you guys as always. Thank you for joining us on the Week 10 recap and reaction show. Hope that you'll subscribe to the channel on YouTube, share this on Facebook, and, of course, on the podcast. Hit that 5-star. It takes you 30 seconds to leave a rating and a review. It helps this show grow tremendously. We can't thank you guys enough for doing that, for being a part of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. And, yes, I saw some of you noticing my fleece I got on here, my vest. Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Take care. Pete Mundo, HeartlandCollegeSports.com.